Hey everybody, Keep7 here, back with another Magic the Gathering Arena video, and today we are going over some more Kalheim spoilers. I just have 3 for today. 2 are kind of, I don't know, I don't think they're going to be very particularly great cards or particularly playable cards, and then we have 1 that I'm actually pretty excited about. So pretty interesting that almost every single one of my videos has at least 1 card that I'm very excited about. Anyway, let's get right into it. So the first card is Toski, Bearer of Secrets, 4 mana, 3 and a green. Legendary squirrel creature. This spell can't be countered. It's indestructible. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, attacks each combat if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, and it's a 1/1. On paper, and like in a vacuum, it's very bad. A 4 mana 1/1 that's indestructible, that doesn't really have, is easily blocked. You know, and the odds that you get a 4 mana 1/1 down, even with indestructible getting combat damage, doesn't on paper sound very good. But there are certain things that are present in Standard right now that make this card very good, I think. Not very good, but playable. Maybe jank playable. One thing I'm thinking of is Mutate. You can mutate onto an indestructible, you know, you can get this guy down, can't be countered. So at the very least he's down and he's indestructible, so he's very hard to remove. Has to be exiled. And if your opponent doesn't have strong exile effects or a lot of exile effects, which exiling is pretty popular right now because of how many things are hard to remove and how many non-creature permanents are being played. Aside from Planeswalkers not so much, but there are a lot of powerful things. Maze Mind Tomes, you know, enchantment sagas, Doom Foretold, stuff like that. There are powerful non-creature permanents being played. So if your opponent doesn't really have ways to kind of work around that, this could be pretty good. A 4 mana 1/1 that's indestructible, again, on paper sounds bad, but I think with Mutate, this is, like, if you can put this in a Mutate deck, it could make Mutate a bit better. If you remember, Mutate was kind of popular when, like, Paradise Druid was in the format, because they found, you know, you have a hexproof mutator who can kind of generate all this value for you, and it's hard to remove. Because the one thing about Mutate is, Mutate puts all your eggs in one basket, and if your opponent is able to remove your mutated creature, there's not a lot of value there. That's why Auspicious Sterix is probably considered one of the better mutate creatures, because it gets other creatures and other permanents out on the board when it mutates. Whereas, you know, other mutate decks that don't, you know, spill out other permanents and creatures are pretty bad. Because, again, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and as soon as that basket has an answer to it, you have pretty much no game plan. You have to rebuild from square one, and you have to have mutate creatures and trigger mutations to generate value. Otherwise, yeah, it's just bad. So having something indestructible, making it even harder to remove maybe a mutate target, could be very good. Other than that, you know, this card is kind of not very playable. So maybe in like a janky mutate deck, this could be very good. You know, forcing it to attack each combat if able. I mean, if you mutate onto this, you're taking a big risk. So, you know, if your opponent goes bigger than you, meaning, you know, if their board has higher powers and toughness than you, and this thing has to attack, I mean, it is indestructible, but so I guess that's not the worst thing in the world. I guess what you would want is something with trample on this too, so you can force, you know, combat damage through to get the card draw. So, I don't know. This is a weird fringe card where maybe this is playable. Maybe this brings Mutate back into the fold. Maybe this makes Mutate, you know, a good play. But, you know, you have to spend 4 mana to get this out. So, you know, you can't wait, you know, 4 turns in a Mutate deck to start generating your mutations. And technically 5, because you have to get this out and then mutate onto it. So maybe in like a Mutate ramp deck, you can kind of maybe get this out early and then start mutating smaller creatures onto it. But at the same time, you know, the indestructible is really what sets it apart. The drawing cards doesn't really matter because we have things like Sea Dasher Octopus, right? So the indestructibility is really why Mutate wants this. Does it see play anywhere else? Maybe in a sideboard against control. You have a 4 mana spell that can't be countered if they're not playing a lot of creatures. But, you know, control plays, you know, creatures at will. You know, they have things like Shark Typhoon. They have things that they can generate bodies. Birth of Meletis. They have ways to put creatures on the board that would, you know, shut this down. and relatively cheap. And again, they can do it at will, especially with Shark Typhoon. If you get this down and they can't counter it, obviously, they'll just make a shark that's bigger than it, and you can't generate any value with it. And it's a 1/1, so you're putting them on a 20-turn clock if you haven't done any damage. So it's kind of an exciting card in that I think that, you know, there's possibilities here, and maybe I'm not seeing them, but the first thing that came to my mind was Mutate. And I just think it's a little clunky and awkward for Mutate. Indestructibility is huge for Mutate. You know, having something that needs to be played around like that, I think is great for Mutate, but I just, you know, it's just a little clunky, which is unfortunate. The next card, I could totally be wrong, but I just think it's bad. The Blood Sky Massacre, 3 mana, 1, a black, and a red enchantment saga, with 3 chapters. First chapter, create a 2/3 red demon berserker creature token with menace. Chapter 2, whenever a berserker attacks this turn, you draw a card and lose 1 life. And turn 3, add 1 red mana for each berserker you control until the end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. I just don't see it. I don't know. This just doesn't sound that good to me. A 3 mana 2/3 body with menace is menace is what makes it worth 3 mana. Because it has some, evasive ability. Whenever a berserker creature attacks this turn, you may draw a card and lose 1 life. It's reminiscent of, what was it, like Stormfist Crusader, right? That 2 mana 2/2 with haste or whatever, or menace. And when at the beginning of each player's upkeep, or at the beginning of your upkeep, both players lose a life and draw a card, or something like that. They're leaning. Berserker is a class I'm not very familiar with, so I don't know if Berserker is like Berserker Tribal. Is there a playable Berserker Tribal? I mean, I guess you got a Demon Berserker. Like, I can't think of a lot of demons, Demon and Demon Berserker like type cards. I mean, you have Archfiend's Vessel, which can make a 5/5 demon. I'm just trying to think of like playable demons. And I can't think of any demons in Standard particularly. We might be having some come, with the Kalheim expansion, so maybe, but I don't know. And then adding 1 red mana for each berserker you control, so it's like a little bit of ramp on the 3rd turn, but like you've cast this on turn 3, and then on turn 6 you get some ramp. Like, you don't need ramp on turn 6, you need ramp earlier. So I just don't understand. And I mean, I guess you get to keep that mana because you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, so you just get some mana that you can keep. But like, how much a 2/3 with menace isn't hard to remove or to block. And like, depending on what your other creatures are, I just don't see it. I don't know. I just don't think that this card is very good. Its development is too slow. It's like ramping ability kind of is nonsensical. Drawing you card and lose 1 life when whenever a berserker attacks you, like if your opponent goes bigger than you do, like if they have a Grakmaw, which is not a playable card, but it's the first thing that comes to mind, a 3 mana 3/3 out on the battlefield, and you've created a 2/3 red berserker creature token with menace. I guess, like, unless they don't have anything else they can block with, like, right? Then you can attack and get the card draw and lose 1 life. But if your opponent is on the draw or was on the play and just has something bigger, like a Lovestruck Beast, like, what is your 2/3 red demon berserker creature token looks like garbage against a turn 3 Lovestruck Beast. And Lovestruck Beast is arguably one of the most played cards in green. So I just don't see it. This card isn't good enough, I don't think. I could be very wrong, but Lovestruck Beast, and the thing I keep forgetting is Menace, but it's not that hard to get something else on the bat. I mean, Lovestruck Beast has to have something else on the battlefield in order to be, well, it doesn't have to, but it most likely has a 1/1 played before it. So if you're playing this, your opponent probably already has a board that this just gets negated by. So I don't see it. I think it's bad, but I could be wrong. I have been wrong before. And then the last card we are going over for today is one I am extremely excited about, one that looks very, very cool for multiple formats, for Historic and for Standard, and any other format, but I'm just obviously talking about the ones that I can play on Arena, or that I do play on Arena. Righteous Valkyrie, 3 mana, 2 and a white, Angel Cleric creature. With flying, whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. As long as you have at least 7 or more life than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2, and it's a 2/4. So this card is exciting because although it leans into the tribal thing that they're kind of pushing with Kalheim, with like angel, cleric, blah, 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 this is playable outside of, tribalness. Because that one word, creatures you control get +2/+2. So it's not just angels and it's not just clerics, it's just creatures you control. So if you're playing a life gain deck that doesn't play a lot of angels and clerics, although it probably will, those other creatures, whether or not they're angel or cleric, get +2/+2, and that's great. One thing that we've learned from Speaker of the Heavens is that getting to 27 life is not an easy task. It can be, especially if you're in an aggro like mirror matchup, where, when you're playing Speaker of Heavens is typically in those like mono-white aggro life gain type decks. And if you're in an aggro mirror, getting to 27 life is difficult because your opponent knows that the payoff of Speaker of Heavens is getting to 27 life. So they'll either keep you away from 27 life or they'll remove the speaker before it becomes a problem. This card really is a huge life gain bump whenever another angel or cleric enters the battlefield. So that's kind of where it is a little bit tribally. It leans into the tribal thing because it requires angels and clerics to enter the battlefield to gain life. To get you to that 27, but like there are a lot of viable angels and clerics right now, I think, that can really kind of push this forward. I mean, this Speaker of the Heavens, like this and Speaker of the Heavens already have like these two cards in combination with each other. If you can hit 27 life, I mean, other creatures you control get +2/+2. I mean, it's already like, I think, a viable combo. Like if you can get to that 27 life, and there are plenty of great ways to gain life and also progress like progress a plan that is, I think, viable. And also, like, a 3-mana 2/4 body with flying is already, I think, just good. And the rest of the text on this card, I think, just makes it better. So it's already, I think, value-wise pretty good based on its, its toughness, and I think based on its power, toughness, mana cost, and its, its evadability with flying. I think that's already pretty good. And then I think it just, like, those two paragraphs make this a very good card. I think Angels might very well have a very playable deck. Maybe not in Standard, maybe in Standard, but definitely in Historic. I mean, this Resplendent Angel, and like all the other, that mid-range Angels deck has a lot of new toys coming. There's that 2-mana Angel coming in Kalheim. There's this. There's those angel enchantments. There's got to be something playable, and angels and clerics. So you could do like an angel cleric deck, and Zendikar Rising had a lot of, with the party mechanic thing. They had a lot of pretty good support for clerics. So, I think an angel cleric hybrid deck. I mean, clerics as a deck already kind of had like this like Orzhov aggro like playability. And I think now with angels and like if you could do an angel cleric hybrid deck, I think you could definitely make something out of this in Standard and definitely in Historic. So I think that this card is going to be very good in Standard, possibly, and probably Historic. I'm excited. I've been playing a little bit of like I played against a couple angel decks and they were really, really cool. And I wanted to play the problem in Historic with angels is that almost every angel that you want to put in your angel deck is a rare or mythic, so it's kind of difficult if you're wild card poor like me. And this is a rare, so it's going to be difficult to get this one too. But it's that solid, man. I think that's a solid card. Getting to 27 life we know is actually a difficult task, but this helps you try to get there too. So if you're playing Angels and Clerics hybrid every single time one of those enter the battlefield, and it like snowballs too if you think about it, right? So like if your creatures get +2/+2, if you're at 26 life, you play a Speaker of Heavens, that's a 1/1, you get 1 life. If you're at 27, you play a Speaker of Heavens that's a 1/1. He's automatically a 3/3 because creatures you can control get +2/+2, so you gain 3 life. So the further you go with this, the better it gets. So it's like that, you're in a weird kind of spot where before you hit that 27 life, this card isn't that, isn't as powerful, but once you hit that 27 life, it just kind of snowballs on itself. Your board gets bigger, and the impact that this card gets bigger. So this is going to kind of be a must remove for your opponent. And I think people are going to sleep on it. I do. I think if you're playing Angel Clerics, I think you play a 2/4, people might just overlook this. But I wouldn't. This card's very good, and it only gets better the longer it stays on the battlefield. So I'm really excited for it. So yeah, that's it for the spoilers for today. I'm very excited about Angels and Clerics and seeing if we have a new tribal deck to fight rogues once Kalheim comes out, which is coming out in a couple weeks here. I think it's early January, if I believe, or maybe it's late January. I can't remember, but yeah. Or no, yeah, it's definitely. I think it's later in January. Doesn't matter. It's coming out in about a month. And I'm excited to see, Angels and Clerics and Tribal stuff getting a lot of support. Hopefully we'll have stuff to fight Rogues. Although that's kind of a conversation for maybe a different video, but, I think Rogues just eats mid-range, right? So maybe Angel Cleric against Rogues isn't a good matchup, but I think it'll have a place. With Gruul Aggro being the best deck in the format and that being like, a low-to-the-ground, fast aggro deck, mid-range, obviously, as we've seen with mono green food, mid-range can have an advantage over it. And if you add life gain, mono green food obviously has life gain in the form of food, but if you add some serious life gain, like life gain every turn with like this guy and just the the general plan of Speaker of Heavens and all that, if you add life gain, Gruul will hate that. So if you add a mid-range life gain deck to the format, like a mid-range Angels, mid-range Angels life gain deck to the format, I think it just eats up Gruul, and we might, as great as Embercleave is, and as great and as powerful as Gruul Aggro can be, maybe a 2/4 body on turn 3 is just, they could have 2 Bone Crusher Giants, which they always do. But that's a big body to put in their way and kind of put their plan a little bit sideways. So I'm excited. I think this it's interesting. Every one of these videos I have one card that I'm really excited for and that I see that I'm really, really excited to test out and play with and brew with. So really getting excited for Kalheim. Seeing a lot of stuff that I really like. There is some stuff obviously that I don't think is that good, but could be intended for the limited format. Yeah, let me know what you think, and yeah, thanks for watching. See you later, everybody.